This is Larry Jordan, the host of the Digital Production Buzz. The following interview is an excerpt from a recent program. To hear the entire program, visit digitalproductionbuzz.com. Jem Schofield is a producer, director, and the founder of TheC47, which is an educational resource focused on teaching the craft of video production and filmmaking. He uses production-based workshops throughout the United States and abroad to teach some of these concepts. He also runs the Filmmakers Intensive, which is a biannual program that focuses on the art and science of documentary and narrative filmmaking. Hello, Jem. Welcome.
Thank you, Larry. Nice to be here.
There we go. We are glad to have you with us. Jem, the NAB just finished. What struck you as some of the highlights?
It was an interesting year. For me, it didn't have sort of the normal splash of previous years, but it was, I think, we had the normal Blackmagic stuff. I'm just going to move the headphones here. It's coming through there pretty loud. So normal Blackmagic stuff, 38 products that they released. But I think that for me, it was sort of a lot of companies who were refining things that they've been trying to get really right for a long time. We did have Canon announce the C300 Mark II, so that was a long-awaited camera. But almost everything else in the space was kind of an evolution of products that each of these companies have been making for quite some time. So I thought that was interesting.
I was watching the podcast that you did where you were talking about the cameras at NAB, and I was struck by the number of different new cameras that caught your attention from the C300, although you liked the FS7 better. You had a number of other camera highlights that you liked. What was it that caught your attention?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't say I like the FS7 better. The C300 Mark II doesn't exist yet, and in a lot of ways, it might be the camera system I lean towards because I have been using Cinema EOS cameras for a long time. It seems like Blackmagic has finally, I don't know if they've become a camera company yet, Larry, but they have, they've released a camera, or at least announced a camera that will release, which is the Ursa Mini, which seems to be kind of their first camera, except for the little pocket camera, that you could say has been designed in an ergonomic way for a real-world shooter without rigging it. JVC came out with, not at NAB, but they were really showing their 300. Numbers, letters 300, which is their Micro Four Thirds mounted for 35 millimeter sensor based camera system. Kind of the promise of, I think, what people were hoping the DVX 200 was going to be, which is also a camera that was announced by Panasonic, which is a Micro Four Thirds fixed lens camera. And I have a long history with DVX cameras. I still have my DVX 100A downstairs in my studio, and I use it as a mini DV deck, basically. But need arises not very often nowadays.
Did you see any new lighting gear that caught your attention? And the reason I ask is I was struck by the number of new LED lights that were now focusable.
I did. Yeah. Lighting is really sort of my obsession. And the vast majority of what I taught at NAB this year in Post-Production World Conference, and then a lot of my workshops, is about lighting. Composition and camera movement as well. Lighting is really the thing I spend most of my time, figuring out. I've been a big fan of the sort of evolution of LED-based technology. It doesn't have that same color spectrum an Omni light that I have right now bouncing has. It's our good old extend quartz halogen sources. But things like remote phosphor from companies like Cineo Lighting, DBS Lighting, now Ari's gotten into the game. Now we have some really interesting things like Flex Light from Westcott, which is a completely flexible, water-resistant LED light source, which you can basically gaff tape onto a wall and has the same or better output than a regular 1x1 LED light. So some exciting stuff. And then we also have these glowing panels. This one behind me is from ICANN. There were other companies that were showing them, and they're edge-based LEDs, and they just basically glow a flat panel, kind of like what Roscoe is doing for a while, but you don't see the individual tiny dots. So it just feels like a salt panel, kind of like solid light from Kino, but in a much smaller format. So lighting is getting pretty exciting.
I want to talk about the C47 that you started, but before we do, could you define, because I think it's a great story, could you define where C47 came from?
The most common story?
We'll take the most common, but the one you want to tell, whichever.
I think the most common one goes back to the golden age of Hollywood and line items to be reimbursed for budgets on feature films, and people using clothespins to hold gels and diffusion on barn doors on lights, and then putting in to be reimbursed for clothespins and getting rejected and resubmitting under under C47s and probably jacking up the price by 10, 20, 100x, getting reimbursed no problem.
I'd always heard that clothespins were a line item in a grip catalog, and it was the product number for clothespins in a grip catalog. But I like your story, too.
I've heard that one, too. And I've also heard that there were bins in the military, not the planes, bins, and clothespins were also labeled C47. So it's there's lots of myths, and it's good that way.
So tell me what the C47 is and why you started it.
It started the C47 really because I had been an educator already, for a long time in the post-production space. But I had been doing production, and I realized it was sort of, at least at the time, this is pre-5D Mark II. There was a sort of a black hole in terms of production-based training. So there's very little going on, even at NEB, teach people about cameras, lighting, camera movement, any of those things. And so started the C47. I started doing daily video podcasts back then, 5 days a week for 3.5 years. Let's see if I can turn up my mic here.
When you're putting these educational programs together, what's the focus in terms of what subjects are you trying to teach, and describe a typical student?
Well, it depends on where I'm teaching. At NAB, it's really about the highest level student that I'd be teaching, because it's usually working professionals who are going about their craft on a daily basis, and they're either coming on their own or they're being sent by the company that they're working for to get trained in both production and post. There's also been, I think, both of you have probably noticed a trend in the corporate world where, because there's so much video content that's being produced, they're bringing in in-house producers to start with, and then they're building teams of in-house production departments. And so I'm seeing that. I'm seeing Google in my classes, Sci-Fi Channel, Macy's. I went down to Motley Fool and did on-site training with about 12 people there, producing 7 to 10 videos a day. So we're seeing a big change. So education is important in this space. And while in the beginning, when the 5D Mark II came out, a lot of the people were transitioning from still to motion, or there were some people in post who wanted to get it production because now cost of entry was even lower. We're really seeing the gamut now. So I'm seeing a lot of producers, I'm seeing a lot of DPs, and sometimes I'll run programs for people who are just beginning, for summer. And then I'm teaching people who have been at it for a long time. Maybe they've been doing something the same way 15 years, and they want to take a look at how to bounce light. Maybe they're not even thinking about bouncing light. I can show them that. Working with negative fill cutters and other tools, and also ways to move their camera more cinematic, integrating tools like motion control systems from companies like Kessler, free fly systems, Movi, and shoulder mounted rigs, which have been used since forever. But how do you use those? How do you move the camera when you're using those things? What are clients looking for in a frame? And it's not just shooting at f1.4.
Are you finding
A lot more than
it easy or hard to get people to attend face-to-face training? Mike is always remarking on how challenging it is to get people to come out and participate in activities with a group. I was wondering if you're finding the same situation with your clients.
Yeah. How was attendance at Post-Production World this year?
It was very good.
Good.
It dipped a few years ago, but I think that dip was overall for the conference. But it's been a healthy attendance as far as I can see in terms of numbers in my classroom. My classes average about 100 to 150 people in the class, the Post-Production World. Lighting is a hot topic, a mystery topic. So I think it also brings a lot of people into the seats. I think we're in better shape in production than we are in terms of the trend we've seen happen with post-production training. I think that's largely moved to an online distribution model. So,
but you do that too, don't you? I mean, you have video tutorials up there for people to watch.
I do. They're not paid though, so I think that's a little different. What I try to do is I try to produce educational content either through the C47 or, fortunately, by being a producer and getting hired by companies like Canon, that is free educational content. I believe in the models that Moviola and the Lint.coms of the world and have, but they're just not the models that I'm in. And I think there's definitely an expectation from an audience's standpoint that they would rather have content be sponsored content and be able to learn and not pay for it.
Yeah. Anything above free is expensive.
To pay for content, though there are corporations and companies that are definitely set up and willing to do that. And again, some of the models that are out there. So it's interesting space.
Yeah.
Interesting is a very, very interesting word to use. Fascinating is another one, and terrifying is a third that comes to mind. I was just reflecting. I was looking back at my notes. You just
third one, terrifying.
Terrifying
for sure.
I got to make a living.
Yeah, bills are due. You just won an award for some of your lighting products. Am my notes incorrect here?
No, they're correct.
What did you get?
I've had this. Newshooter.com awarded Westcott, which is a company that people have probably heard of, best lighting product. And it was specifically for a new lighting control system that they released that they had a lot to do with, called Scrim Jim Cine, sort of the evolution of the Scrim Jim line. And I've been working with them for close to 10 months, using their products for years. And I was able to design 2 specific kits for them based around this new system. One of them is a DP kit. It's a portable 4-foot by 4-foot frame that breaks down into 22-inch tubes. And then the other one is a 4 by 6-foot booklight kit. And they're really designed for small to medium-sized productions. Easy to travel with, and allow people to get consistently great results, not just using Westcott's lights, but anybody's lights to really kind of bump up their productions and production value. So yeah, it's kind of nice to that. But it's just the beginning. It's probably going to come out by Cine Gear. We're just making final tweaks, and I actually have a call with them tomorrow, so we can kind of game plan the next 6 to 8 weeks, so we can create a lot of content around the system and start to teach people how they work. And there's actually some sneak peeks on TheC47.com that got posted today about that whole system. It's kind of cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah, congrats.
Congratulations. What aspect, and we got about 2 minutes left, what aspect of being an educator do you think is most valuable to your students? What do they turn to you for rather than somebody else?
Well, I don't know if it's rather than somebody else, but I would say that I'm in it for the long haul. So I've been doing it for 15 years. I'm passionate about education, and I'm constantly learning myself so that I can teach people new skills. And I would say in the classroom, I'm enthusiastic about people learning for application. So this is a doing this business we're in. It's not about passing tests. It's about every day is different, and we're problem solving. And that's how I approach my education. I don't teach for an outline, though I always have an outline. I teach for the people who are in the room. And I think that's why people come back. Because I'm there to give them everything I can within the time that I have. And hopefully they'll walk away having a different viewpoint, or having learned a new skill that they can actually apply to the work that they're doing. That's probably why. Hopefully.
That's very cool.
Well,
Jem?
you don't get 150 people in your class at Post-Production World unless you're good.
That's for sure.
And Jem's one of the best.
And Jem, where can people go on the web to learn more about what you're doing?
Easily at TheC47.com.
That's all one word, THE, the letter C, 47, TheC47.com. And Jem Schofield is the founder of the C47. Jem, it's been a delight visiting. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, Jem.
Take care. Bye-bye.